It's a joy to join you Mojoers, at least digitally, in saluting our pal Jay Harris. Jay, the sage of Bartlesville, left the oil patch of northeast Oklahoma years ago, and he has risen all the way to Mother Jones, where he has produced gusher after gusher of insight and exposés. Smarter than a tree full of owls and with a heart bigger than a number 10 washtub, Jay is a true treasure for the progressive movement nationally. In fact, he's always strategizing and mobilizing to see if we can't put a little progress in progressive. He learned something years ago that we in the South have always known to be true. It was taught to us by Louis Grizzard, the late great Southern humorist. Grizzard said that there's a big difference between being naked and being naked. Now, naked means you have no clothes on. Naked, that means you have no clothes on and you are up to something. Jay has always been naked.
I received a memorandum from an outside consultant in 1990 when I was running both the business and editorial sides of the magazine, saying that everything was right with Mother Jones except that circulation was plummeting. $500,000 in liabilities had just been discovered that we hadn't known about, and morale was low. The bottom line of the memorandum was that we needed an able publisher. And so we went out on a search for one. We did all the things you're supposed to do, hired a high-priced search company in New York, put the word out, networked with all kinds of business side people. And actually Jay's name came up because I was visiting a writer in New York, and his partner had worked with Jay at Business Week, or at Newsweek, and so the suggestion was made that we would work well together, and I called Jay, was surprised to find that he was ready to leave Hong Kong and willing to consider it. He brought to the organization those big ears. I mean that both literally and figuratively. He was somebody who could listen, who could navigate this really difficult assignment, which was to take Mother Jones in a more business-like direction on the publishing and business side without losing its heart, without losing its soul, without losing its purpose in the world. And Jay did that by listening, by using his aw shucks manner to get people around a table, and by driving really with steel in the toes of those shoes to remake the operation and to put it on a sustainable basis. I'm really grateful for the years we had working together. I know this is a roast, but I'm not going to be capable of searing him with hardly anything. He really took a magazine that had a few very, very shaky years, put it on a sustainable basis, and made it something that those of us who worked at it bled for it, sweated for it, worked intensely to make sure it would survive. We have a lot of pride in what he accomplished, and it makes those years of effort on the part of so many people seem worth it, to see that the magazine went from being an adolescent to a big-time player in America's political culture. We had a large donor we were cultivating together who had promised something like a $2 million donation. At that time we were raising about $1 million a year, so it was a very big deal, to completely remake our editorial offerings by doing photographer-writer teams and sending them out around the world. It would have obviously made it a hugely interesting opportunity for me as the editor. And very late in those negotiations, the editor, the potential donor and the partner of the potential donor just had a few things that they wanted to tell us about the way the editorial operations that the magazine should be run. They wanted us to consider a new name. and they wanted to be able to read some of the offerings and to begin to give us their ideas about the editorial direction of the magazine. And you know, Jay and I looked at each other. We didn't even have to say anything to each other. We basically walked away from $2 million based on the idea that the magazine had to have its editorial integrity. That was a key moment for us, but there were many moments like that. There were donors who thought they should have been editors. There was a very vibrant staff culture at Mother Jones. At the time, there were few other magazine editors and publishers dealing with unionized staff, represented by the auto workers, dealing with freelance writers represented by the National Writers Union. There were lots of stresses and lots of cross pressures, and I think that yeah, Jay's kind of steady, jokey, terrible jokes really set a kind of tone for getting down to the business and having some fun doing it. God, I mean, you know, they were the forgettable, terrible jokes. I mean, they were the kinds of things that that your folksy cousin would say around the dinner table and make people groan. They allowed people on the staff to sort of see him. He was coming in as an outsider from a mainstream news outlet. There were lots of reasons for people who had been on the staff for many years and who had lived through some very, very tough years, let's be clear. An editor fired, who became famous for getting fired at Mother Jones, was in the recent past at that point. And these big questions about what the magazine was going to be and whether it was going to survive. And so I think that style of people around the table knew they had Jay's respect. There wasn't anything top-down about him until the point when the really tough decisions needed to be made and explained.
Hi, I'm Rachel Maddow. I have a TV show on MSNBC. Don't tell them I'm using the cameras. Thank you so much for carving out a few moments for me tonight to join the chorus of Jay Harris fans singing his praises. I have two closely related but different stories for you about Jay. Ready? Story number one. A few years ago, Jay and I were in Boulder, Colorado for the Conference on World Affairs. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that particular week-long event, but it's kind of like intellectual summer camp for grown-ups with drinking and a lot of very sexy talk about nuclear proliferation. And then there's other drinking. One late evening, I accosted Jay with an issue that is very close to my heart and very juvenile. It's the issue of proper eyewear. Jay, I discovered with fervor. Did I mention it was late at night? This was sort of a drinking event. I had a lot of fervor in my realization that Jay would look extra handsome if he wore glasses like the ones that I was wearing at the time. And so I took, without asking, I didn't know him all that well. I just took the glasses off his face. I took my glasses off, I put them on his face, and I took a picture with my phone so he could see how totally right I was. A couple of days or weeks later, I don't really remember exactly how long it was, I got an email from Jay with a picture attached showing that he had gone out and purchased new glasses that were a not completely terrible facsimile of my own. Yay, Jay! Story number two. Jay was also kind enough to be a guest on my radio show, which I was doing live from the Conference on World Affairs in Boulder. It was just before the presidential election would have been in 2008, and I asked him what would happen to Mother Jones if a Democrat was elected to the White House. And Jay said, if they extend their hand, I'll never forget it, if they extend their hand, we'll grab it, and then we'll keep our boot on their throats. When it came to the very cosmetic matter of his glasses, Jay didn't hate me for bullying him into buying new ones. But Jay has never lost sight of the mission of independent media. He's been putting his big, non-militarist, friendly lefty boot on the appropriate throats for almost 20 years, all the while making us a more democratic with a small d kind of country. So to Jay and to everybody at Mother Jones, thank you for your great service to our country. Our country needs you. You connect all of us to each other and to our communities with every issue. Congratulations on all your success. And Jay, I'm sorry for the glasses bullying thing. I can't promise I won't do it again, though.